This is my research project entitled Offline Networks. My project looks at distributing information through a website on a solar-powered computer. The context. This project is situated in the Calais refugee camp, where I used to be an aid worker. There is a distinct lack of stable infrastructure, including housing and electricity. There is a chaotic site culture, resulting in problems distributing key information. This is partly caused by the constant movement of people through the camp and the lack of common language. People are often unable to find out about when they can access the services that they need, resulting in poor living conditions and very understandable frustration. I wanted to research the ways in which technology could help with information distribution in this very specific context. I wanted to see if I could turn a computer into a server which could host a website I'd built with important information about when various charities and services would be available within the camp. To do this, I set up a Raspberry Pi computer and used Unohost to turn it into a server. I built a website using HTML and used my Raspberry Pi to host this website. I ran all of this from a local area network and so worked out how to connect people to the same LAN as my Raspberry Pi was running on. I thought about the place of this work within the environment and sought to investigate whether it would be possible to solar power this in the hope of being less reliant on power sources that would have to be manually deployed. I made this work following permacomputing principles, including the principle to observe first. Permacomputing looks at only intervening when technological intervention is deemed necessary, and trying to understand the context of the work and the technology you're bringing to the world before acting. I was also inspired by various artist collectives, including 100 Rabbits, who work off-grid and use only solar power. They're interested in how technology can be minimally consumptive, which is something I drew on to make this project, including by dithering the images I've used on the website. I documented my work throughout and put together a zine for anyone interested in learning more about my process. This comes from ethical computing and open source frameworks used by many artists referenced in this project. Techno Agency and books, such as What Things Do by Peter Paul Verbeek, also influenced my thinking on how technological structures impact social relations, which was something I considered throughout the course of this investigation, specifically when realizing how much effort and hardware it took to host even a simple website. The essential outcome of this project is a website detailing when 4 services will be available at the distro point of the Calais refugee camp. These include food, medical services, access to hot showers, and access to phone charging. This website is hosted on a solar-powered Raspberry Pi and connected to a local area network. My aim was to make something small, contained, and self-sufficient as possible, so that it wasn't reliant on greater structures or authorities. Socially, I hope this project would allow people living within the Calais refugee camp to access information more readily, therefore increasing organisation and leading to less uncertainty and a greater ability to access important services. There are a few ways in which I'd like to further develop this project now. Firstly, I'd like to think more about how someone without much knowledge of computing could update the system. I've been secure shelling into my Raspberry Pi from my MacBook and running fairly complex commands from my terminal in order to set up my Pi and server and upload a website or make any changes. I acknowledge that most people working in the refugee camp did not have access to the information and skills I have as a computing student, and are also very low on spare time. For this website to be effective, it's important it stays up to date, so easy intervention and editing on the web page are important. I wonder if I could build an interface where people could put in new times or dates if the services change, and it would update the website. Secondly, I'd like to think more about the physical infrastructure around this project. As I've mentioned, there is a distinct lack of infrastructure in the Calais camp, and anything built is liable to both weather conditions and things such as police evictions. I began to think about how you could house the hardware, as illustrated on the right, but would like to further consider how to secure the technological setup to ensure longevity and maximum efficiency of this project.